Hi everyone. To all of you that are online, my name is Mike. I am a third-year PhD student in the department.
And hi, I'm Hannah. I'm also a third-year student in the department, first-year PhD, completed my master's here in April of this year.
Today we're going to talk to you about student life, Ann Arbor, stuff like that. And then after that, we're going to move to a student panel. You guys can ask us questions about our experience here or anything you guys are wondering about Ann Arbor or Michigan Biostats. So to start, we are the Department of Biostatistics. We are within the School of Public Health here at Michigan. And then within that, we are within the college town of Ann Arbor. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, Ann Arbor is a really awesome college town to live in. It's a really awesome place to be a young person. And the big University of Michigan gets a little bit smaller within the Department of Biostats and within the School of Public Health as well. So it's a great way to make your community a little smaller as you work your way in on this little Venn diagram.
Yeah, and as Hannah said, one of the cool things about Ann Arbor is that we are a college town. We have a lot of young people keep coming in, young scholars from like all the departments across the University of Michigan. So it's a really lively town for you to live in. Next, we'll be talking about our department. I'm sure you've seen from the previous presentations that we are a larger department. Currently for this year, we have 259 students, 124 staff members, 48 full-time faculty, and we have over 2,000 alumni.
And then I'll also add that the Michigan Alumni Network is really strong, so this is a really awesome place to talk to people if you're looking for internships or jobs and things like that. We just have a lot of because of this big department, we have people going all over the place. So not only while you're in this department, but then also people who have gone through it as well are great resources to you.
Here on the slide, we have a bunch of the student resources and other student activities that are involved with our department. We have a bunch of academic support. There's library resources, journal resources from Michigan. Our department facilitates first-year study groups for the student. So as you come here, while you tackle your first-year master's coursework, you'll be doing study groups, which are voluntary. Like you don't necessarily have to do them, but I strongly encourage you to do some study groups. It's a great way to meet students, a great way to understand the coursework better. There are groups that are led by a course facilitator who is a senior PhD student. We have a wellness and inclusion advocate. Her name is Chidima. She enhances and improves the student experience through activities that promote well-being in a multicultural community. Chidima hosts a multicultural food and game night, which is where students bring food and culture and games from their background. And it's just like one night in the department where everyone gets together and talks about what's going on in their life, and you can play games, eat food, and stuff like that. We have some great computing support from our department, such as from Mike, who is one of our R software developers. He helps students to write R packages. He helps them to understand R for the homework and stuff like that. And he hosts a workshop, and there's just a bunch of software development support and stuff like that. Community engagement, we are engaged in the community. I'll let you talk about StatCom.
Cool, yeah, so I am a co-president of StatCom, so I am biased. I think it's really cool, but it's a really great program that you can get involved with where you get to, as a grad student, you get to work with community partners. StatCom stands for Statistics in the Community, and it's a great way for you to get your hands on some real-world messy data because the ones you see in your classes are all pretty curated, and it's a volunteer situation where we create groups of students to work with a community partner, and then you get that real hands-on data experience with the analysis, anything after the data collection phase. And we have some really awesome community partners. We work with people around the Ann Arbor, Detroit area, into Chicago. We have some partners in northern Ohio as well. And it's a really awesome program, a great way to get involved with some real life research type things. And then also with community engagement, we also have lots of other groups you can get involved with, one of which is the Biostats Student Association, or BSA. They're a group of biostat students who put on events throughout the semester. Some favorite ones that I've participated in, they have therapy dogs they bring in near finals, which is really awesome. We've had some events where we've gone out and gone to the Creature Conservancy, which is something in Ann Arbor with a bunch of exotic animals around here, which is cool. And lots of ways to just connect with other people in biostats outside of the work and school environment. And we have other also ways you can get involved in the department, things like peer mentoring committee, curriculum committee, and ways you can offer effort to the department in a really cool way to get involved right away. Oh, yeah, that's the next thing. Departmental committees. Yeah, so I'm involved in the peer mentoring committee, which is really great. You get to, as a second year student and beyond, you get to partner with the first year students as a mentor, which is really great. And then also that means for you as first years, you get a mentor student right away, someone who's gone through exactly what you're going through. And they are a great resource to ask questions about, which electives might make sense based on your interests, how to, navigate the transition to grad school, even silly things like where do I go find this kind of food in Ann Arbor. So it's a really great resource right away when you start here in Biostat to make that, again, maybe potentially big seeming department a little bit smaller right away.
Yeah, I myself, I'm on the student recruitment and the health data science committees. I'm also a student representative at the faculty meeting, so we're a very democratic department where there's like a lot of say from the students. And given that we're such a big department, I think specifically our chair, Abramar, has made a concerted effort to give the students a voice, which I think is really great. Lastly, on this slide, there's always seminars, workshop, and faculty and student interactions. Again, because we're the big department, the leadership here has made a concerted effort to make sure students and faculty are getting to know each other in smaller settings outside the classroom. So that includes things like BFF time. There's a weekly seminars with speakers from all over the world, which you can learn more about research and different research areas. The graduate student working group, which is where a graduate student will present their research for one night, and there's only graduate students allowed in the audience. So it's a kind of a cool way to show your research without, pressure from faculty asking you super hard questions or stuff like that. And there's also faculty lunches, which are once a semester, so twice a year, where you get like an Excel sheet of like all the faculty in the department who signed up to do this. They pick a restaurant and they take a group of like 5 to 6 students out to the restaurant. And that's a great way to know the faculty on a more personal level, and also a great way to have some lunch on the department's money. Given that we are graduate students, we of course are going to advertise the ones that are free food, as you might have been wondering why some of them were bold and italicized, and that's why. Next, we're going to talk about SPH. There's 40 research centers and initiatives within the School of Public Health, as well as more than 40 student organizations. There's the Career Development Center and the Writing Lab, which are resources provided by the School of Public Health. And these are great resources that you can use. I know the Writing Lab, they help with everything from your capstone course with $6.99. They can help you write your papers for that course. They help you with your dissertation, anything like that. And then the Career Center help you with your cover letters and your resume and stuff like that, as well as connecting you to internships and potential jobs.
Yeah, so this slide is a little bit more about broadly the University of Michigan and the really awesome things that we have available to us as a bigger institution. So as you can see here on the left, this is a picture of the big house, and I'm sure you've heard about Michigan football. We just won the national championship. It's a really exciting place. And so we have really awesome things to do in the community. We have lots of sports events. We have musical theater. We have concerts, all sorts of things put on by the institution, which is really great. And again, we are a really top-rated university. We're consistently ranked in the top, just as a university as a whole, but also Ann Arbor is ranked consistently as a really great place to live. So all these things together really bring a lot of opportunities for you to get involved. There's lots of things to do. And beyond that, there are also, just again, with the university, we have 3 different gyms on campus, so you have ways to be active in 3 different areas. There's one that's under renovation really close to SPH right now, which should be finished, I want to say, in the next 2 years or something. So lots of really exciting things coming there. And also we have a lot of really awesome resources, things like CAPS for mental health resources available to students at the university. And our university health service is also available to students and really close to SPH. It's walking distance.
Yeah, as well, again, Michigan's a big school. We're a big department in a big school and a big university. So there's a bunch of intramural sports and stuff like that. Michigan has its own Quidditch team if you're a fan of Harry Potter. And I do also mention that one of the gyms is completely under renovation, as Hannah said. They completely knocked it down. They're putting up a new one. But instead, in the meantime, the university put up like this big insulated tent on one of the fields as like a temporary gym that you can use. So we do have 3 gym facilities. And as long as you have your M card and you're currently enrolled as a student, you have access to them.
Yeah, so going back to, again, Ann Arbor being a great place to live, one thing I'll note, people ask a lot about the weather. I think the most important thing to have is a warm coat and some waterproof boots, because even though, people talk about the winter, I think it's less about, the snow, it's more about the snow melting. So make sure you have some waterproof boots. That's important to have. And also, we are really close to Detroit and also the DTW, the airport. It's only a 30-minute ride, which is really easy. We have the Michigan Flyer bus that is, I think, $15 to get a ticket to the airport. So it's really easy to, if you're from farther away, to get back home. Detroit is a hub. It's pretty easy. I'm from the West Coast area, and it's really easy for me to find a flight home, which I really appreciate being further from home. And we have an Amtrak station that's really close to the downtown area as well. You can get buses and trains to Chicago pretty easily and other cities in the surrounding area. So it's it's a really interconnected city as well.
Yeah, I definitely echo everything Hannah says. Being, close to Detroit airport is really convenient, and they have the Michigan Flyer, which is a bus you can take for like $10-15 to go there, which is amazing. I do want to talk about our public transportation system. So as a University of Michigan student with your M card, you have access to not only the Michigan buses, but the Ann Arbor buses as a whole. So you can really get around Ann Arbor and some areas of Ypsilanti for free with your M card, which is really great. So lastly, we have these pictures. We really want to emphasize here as students the culture in our department that we have. Our department really has made a strong effort to build community, and our department has so many events that you can attend. Here we have the Christmas party, we have our fall picnic. Typically on Valentine's Day, they have a dumpling making section, which you can see up here, which is really cool. We have ice skating in the winter. When the weather gets a little warmer, we have our Biostat versus Epi cornhole tournament. We are the current champions. If you want to help us keep that up, feel free to come here if you're good at cornhole. We have movie night, graduation, and of course, we're a strong research institution, so before students graduate, they put together like a senior research showcase, where students get a chance to talk about their dissertations, and you can come learn about them. That's all that we have for our slides. Now, I want to get to the more important part, which is answering your questions, which we'd be happy to do.
So I'll read out a question, if you can just repeat. I'll add that to the chat. A student asked about career services. He says, I feel that many students are planning to study in the PhD program, and I would like to ask advice about the program's career service for those who want to go to work directly. And because there's no very detailed employment report on the official website.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the question, I'll repeat it, is that what career resources are there for people that want to do a terminal master's, don't necessarily want to do a PhD? So definitely a lot of our students go on to the PhD, but we have plenty of students that go on to a job after they do their master's. I would say I would actually maybe say that the alumni network is maybe even more important than career resource services. We have 2,000 alumni out there that are familiar with our department. They know our department puts students through rigorous training, and they produce good biostatisticians. We have many students that get internships after their first year of their master's, and then they get a job after that. Typically for the internship, some of them just apply themselves, and we get scooped up really easily because of our Michigan brand and stuff like that. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll also say that, so Michigan, we send students all over the place. We have, just thinking of our cohort of people who left after the master's, we have people that went to Indianapolis, to Baltimore, to Boston, just the top of my head, those are the examples that I have. Chicago. So we send people all over the place. So again, that network is really important. And in addition to, as well, the career services, we also get lots of emails, again, from the alumni who have graduated from this department that say, hey, we're looking to hire, we'd love to have one of your students. So we also just get lots of emails about opportunities as well, and it's definitely something that I would recommend taking advantage of. And all, I think, of my friends who had internships between their first and second year of the master's ended up getting jobs with those same companies as well after the master's master's was done. So it is a really strong pipeline, and I would recommend taking advantage of it.
Definitely. And this question also mentioned a lack of official report for that. So I mean, this is obviously anecdotal evidence, but some of the master's students that I know that left, they went to things like Veterans Affairs. One of them is a data scientist at Reddit. Eli Lilly's a big one. We have multiple graduates go there each year, which is in Indiana. AbbVie's another one. And our master's students typically don't have problems getting jobs.
Yeah, we also had 2 people from our cohort go to work at Harvard as a biostatistician, as a researcher. So again, just a wide range of things. And Nicole, I thought we did have a report of some kind. Maybe I'm...
Well, yeah, there was some information in the presentation.
Okay, I feel like there might be something online as well. So I would look. I'm pretty sure that Michigan has a pretty good outline of where biostats grads go. So I would look into that again, because I swear I have seen it before.
We have 3 more questions. The first is, what are some ways that students have paid or are paying for their degree?
Yes, that's another really important question. I'll start. So obviously, if you have a funding offer from our department, that's great. If you don't, some students take out loans, kind of like undergrads, the same thing. There's one thing that I do want to mention that maybe you haven't heard of yet in these presentations. It's called Rackham cost sharing. So you yourself can apply for external fellowships. That would be like your own initiative to apply for them. And then if you're awarded one, depending on the award that you received, Rackham Graduate School can match some of that funding offer. For example, like if you have a certain offer from the NSF or whatever, and it doesn't completely cover your tuition, Rackham might cover the other half. Or if you have a tuition offer but you don't have health insurance, Rackham can provide that for you. So the specific details are online. It's called the Rackham cost sharing, but that's another way that students have funded their own degree.
And I'll also mention that if you don't have a funding offer from biostats as a GSI or a GSRA, you can also look for those in other departments. That is something you certainly can do. I have friends that found a particular thing I would recommend is teaching statistics classes in non-statistics departments, because oftentimes those students in those departments don't want to teach those classes because those aren't their areas of interest. So that would be a really good place to start, look for the positions, or you can do something as a GSI, that a graduate student instructor, in case that wasn't clear, in an area that you're comfortable with that's not statistics. So I had a friend teach a language, like a GSI for a language class, just because she was a double major coming through, and that's just what she thought would work for her. So you're not restricted, again, by looking just for funding within biostats as well. That's the benefit of having, that big, large research institution at your disposal.
Another question is, I've heard that because the master's program is a little bigger, it can feel competitive for opportunities in just general. Is that true? And could you talk about department culture environment?
Sure. So the question talks about competition for resources and stuff like that, given the department size. I would say for the master's program, we do have a competitive nature among the students, particularly for spots in the PhD program. I would say if you're a terminal master's student, you're obviously, there's a competitive environment, but I would say, I wouldn't necessarily say personally that there's competition for resources outside of that. Things like the writing lab or the resources or jobs or internships or stuff like that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think a lot of the competition that this might be referencing is just people who are interested in getting the PhD after the master's. Terminal master's students, it doesn't really affect them so much. And then people who are direct admit PhD, it doesn't really affect them as well. And there's certainly, again, it's a big research institution, so there are lots of resources available to you. So yeah, just taking advantage of those things, even just outside this department as well. I think a lot of people overlook those resources as well.
Yeah, so the second half of that question about department culture, I would say interactions with the faculty, I've only had positive ones. We're all on a first name basis, which is really nice. All the faculty are obviously world-renowned researchers in their field, but I would actually say my favorite aspect of them is when I just get to meet with them at lunch and stuff, and they talk about and they brag about their children and stuff like that. I think that's one of the most important things that we have in our department. But I do think that the person that asked this question talked about the competition. I think it's important to emphasize that there are many master's students in our department that are competing for spots for the PhD program, and that's probably where you've heard the competition part come from, and it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, and going back to that culture comment too, I think the really cool thing, as Mike was alluding to, all the professors here are people, which I really enjoy, and I was really surprised by coming to such a big institution. So the faculty are really awesome to talk to one-on-one. And also I would say the students that we attract tend to also be really kind, people-focused people. I think that's a mixture of the fact that we're a biostats department, which is pretty grounded in those applications and people. But also I think Michigan, just as a place and as an institution, they tend to attract really people-focused people as well. You know, you breed what you put out. So I think we do a really good job with that.
Yeah, and maybe I should re-articulate. There is competition among master's students, but there's no like real, like none of the master's students here are like nasty about it. I would say it mostly encourages like stress among the students. It doesn't really, like no one here is like mean and stuff like that, yeah.
Why did you pick Michigan Graduate School, and is there anything you would change about the department or your experience at Michigan?
You want to go first or you want?
Yeah, sure, I can go this time. So when I was applying to grad schools, I applied quite literally all over the country. So Michigan wasn't particularly on my radar when I first reached out. I actually almost didn't apply because I didn't think I would get in. And every interaction that I had with Michigan was incredibly positive. So that made a really big difference to me. I went to a smaller liberal arts school for undergrad, and I really wanted to make sure that where I went for grad school, I would be supported. And Michigan really came through on that for me. I got a phone call when I was admitted from the person that I mentioned in my essay that I wanted to work with, saying, "Hi, we'd really like to offer you a position in our program." Like that really meant a lot to me. I also, for full transparency, I was offered a fully funded position, which did make a big difference for me. But apart from that, compared to the other universities I was really seriously considering, Michigan by far and away made me feel the most valued as a person, which was really important to me.
Yeah, I echo a lot of things Hannah just said. Personally, my research interest is statistical genetics, and this is a really strong department for that, so that's one of the reasons that I came here. Another one of the reasons is, again, as Hannah said, everyone that I interacted with made me feel supported and made me feel like that, like my concerns and questions were important. And to me, that was really important. This is a big department, so having your small little niche of faculty and students that you know is really important to make your experience that much better.
Yeah, and I'll also say Michigan is a great place to go if you don't know exactly what you want to work on yet, because we have such a wide variety of faculty working on so many different things. I thought I knew what I wanted to do when I got here, and I figured out once I got here that wasn't exactly what I was looking for. And it was really easy for me to pivot and start working with somebody else on something that I better enjoyed.
I think the second half of that question is what we would change about the department. If I had to pick one thing, I would say our department has kind of a traditional / old school approach to coursework. I wouldn't say that the coursework itself is like out of date, but I would say a lot of the faculty here really emphasize coursework, maybe a little too much. I think when you think about your graduate school education, you should think about like what you want to do when you go there. I would say, at some places, they train their junior students by getting them involved with research kind of right away, and the courses are less important, and you're prepared for your future, your dissertation, with that research experience. Here, I would say the faculty really prepare you for the dissertation with their coursework, or at least that's their attitude for it. I would say a benefit of that is I would probably presume that the instructional quality here is more important or is better than it is at other places, just because our faculty place a stronger emphasis on coursework in general. But I think our department kind of finding more of a balance between coursework and research, especially for junior students, would be beneficial.
Yeah, and one thing I think I was surprised by coming here, I don't know if this is necessarily that I would change or could change, but I was a little bit surprised that Biostat felt a little bit separated from the School of Public Health. So there are certainly opportunities for you to get involved in other ways in the department, like with the groups that we've mentioned earlier that are SPH groups rather than Biostat groups or Michigan groups. But I was really surprised by how separated we felt as a department. And I do think the department, again, is a really good support network on its own, but I anticipated there would have been more crossover than there is.
Okay. collaboration with the Department of Statistics, how do you see yourself comparing with a stat grad student?
I can start on this one. So we have a lot of statistics and biostat students taking classes across those two departments. So for example, I took a Bayesian stats class in stats, and I have a friend in stats who is taking causal inference right now with me in biostats. So there's a lot of flexibility in, you know, going back and forth, which opens opportunities to take more classes, frankly, which I enjoy. In terms of like what you get out of each degree, the core classes for both stats and biostats are cross-listed. So the courses teach you effectively the exact same thing. It's just that you're getting, you know, different professors maybe teaching these classes, and in biostats, generally speaking, all of our applications are in public health or healthcare, which really, when it comes down to it, is really the only big nuance difference. With the additional piece that maybe we have a couple classes in biostats that stat doesn't have, which would be clinical trials and survival analysis, because those are pretty biostats focused things. But otherwise, just as a, you know, looking at those core courses and your outcomes as a grad student afterwards, you can go get exactly the same jobs.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I'd also say our department's probably more interdisciplinary than theirs in terms of like the collaborations that we have. Again, as Hannah said, all of our applications are pretty much in human health. So we have departments, so like we have collaborations with like genetics and epidemiology and all the school public health courses, and Michigan Medicine and the Rochelle Cancer Center. And I would probably say on average, when it comes to courses, particularly the ones after the core courses, the upper electives are probably more applied on average. I would assume their courses, and for like the doctoral degree and stuff like that, is probably more dependent on like measure theory and theory and stuff like that. We might be a little more applied.
Adding on to the question regarding competition, how about competition for certain labs?
So the question's about competition for certain labs within the department. I think based off the way that our department funds students, you will be matched to a professor. I don't necessarily know if there's competition among labs, because you typically don't have, like, there's not too much fighting for spots, because I think the department kind of decides it for you, right?
Yeah, and I'll also say that just because if you want to work with someone and they don't have funding for you, you can always work with them for credit. That is certainly an option. Like right now, I'm working with my dissertation advisor, and she doesn't have funding for me yet, so I'm teaching for my funding instead. So, and I have a friend who in the master's wasn't funded but still wanted to work with this particular individual, and he just took it for credit. It's like an independent study. So there are definitely avenues where you can work with who you want to. You just may not get funding directly from that source, if that's the question about resources.
Yeah, and I'll also mention that if you're interested in the PhD, you can do your dissertation with someone and have them and not be funded by them, and you could do your GSRA or GSI, as Hannah does, with someone else. So if faculty have the bandwidth to take you on, they still can, even if they can't necessarily fund you. So I wouldn't say there's too much competition among labs, right?
Do master's students commonly have opportunities to engage in research projects with faculty members that do not involve a research assistantship?
Yes, those have to be sought out. They're not going to be just given to you, but they are certainly possible. I have friends who sometimes certain courses that you take, like I think in particular 620 maybe, the health big data class taught by Peter Song. I have a couple friends who did, you do a project in that class all semester, and some of them were really excited about what they worked on, and so then they just kept working on it and ended up publishing it later. So there are certainly opportunities available to you. You just have to seek them out, because they aren't just going to plop in your lap.
You know, as you mentioned, you can do research for credit, right?
Yes, and you can do research for credit as an independent study. That is certainly an option as well. And I'll also go back to StatCom. I'll plug that again. That's a really great, it's not a research opportunity necessarily, but it's a great way to, again, get involved with some messy real life data in a way that research might be doing.
Yeah, and as Hannah said, these are things you probably have to seek out yourself, which is important.
That is all for questions. I don't know if you want to make some closing remarks as well.
Well, thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help. You have a big decision to make picking your graduate institution. It's a big financial and time commitment, so you deserve all the information you have. So my biggest advice to you is just don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions, even candid questions or contentious questions.
Yeah, and you can find both of our emails on the admissions ambassadors page for SPH as well. So that's also, feel free to reach out to me afterwards or Mike afterwards. We're happy to talk to you. And I do think that in this decision process, in any institution you're applying to, I think the most important thing is to talk to students because they will be honest with you. So reach out, ask those questions, and figure out, what's the vibe that fits you really well.
And I should probably introduce myself. I'm Nicole Fennick. I'm the academic program manager, which means I basically lead student services within the department. And I want to thank you for attending, and I want to re-emphasize, please reach out if you have any questions. We will be sending a survey, and in that survey, you'll be able to list your name and preferences if you would like to be contacted for further information. And with that, I thank you, and I hope we will see you in late August, which gets earlier and earlier. And go Blue. Thank you.